Hi, we're here with Cam and Vera Robinson at Hope Hill Farm. They're at the south end of Salt Spring Island, just on Musgrave Road.
235.
Right, and I noticed your website, Not a Factory, which sort of perhaps speaks a little about your philosophy on the farm here. And maybe you'd like to talk about that a bit.
Oh, absolutely. We started the farm here about 2.5 years ago. And what moved us to do it was our experience with beef initially. We had been eating a fair amount of beef. I'm from Alberta, and I enjoy my beef. What happened was our oldest son had been going to university and had brought us information on where our beef is coming from and what kind of how we're voting with our stomach. And we stopped eating beef.
I like that, voting with your stomach.
Yeah, I think I lifted that from Saladin.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, the upthrust is we stopped eating it, and it was a hardship that we couldn't overcome. So we decided we're going to get a cow, and it started there. Although we have been farming chickens for some time, just as a lifestyle thing, right?
That was in Alberta.
No, that was in British Columbia. We started on Galliano Island. And there's a bit of a background there. I was doing greenhousing, and this might be interesting to you. How Vera and I met was she came to interview me. She worked for a publication in the islands, and she came back again to do another interview, and 24 years later.
Vera, maybe you're the one who should be doing this interview.
No, I'm out of practice. I think you're better.
So that was our history. We have farmed before. Yeah. We've had chickens, we've had pigs, and we had children, and that put an end to it. So as our kids were just finishing high school and entering university, we saw the opportunity to spend all the money before they did.
Good idea.
We bought a cow, we got chickens, and we decided we would not raise them in a way that cause them stress, or we wanted them to be treated as we would want to be treated if we were to be eaten.
Well, yeah, again, your website indicates that you want all your animals to be happy, and that's a pretty good philosophy.
Yeah, I think we have to go out the door every morning and be able to make them our first priority, and when we're no longer able to do that, we should no longer be raising animals, right? And I've had my moments, they escape and they're belligerent and they have personalities just like people do, and souls. The animals have souls. I'm going to go on record and say that animals do have souls.
Was it 2010 that you came here to Salt Spring?
No, we came here in 2001, and initially we bought a small house. We were looking for a farm. It took us several years to locate this one. And we've made the transition about 7 or 8 years ago now to here. Mm-hmm. We didn't begin farming in earnest, though, until 2009 when we really started to develop the property. But it was raw. And what we could share, really, what I'd like to share with everybody who's interested in being an upstart like we are, is that you can do it with ubiquitous materials. There's a lot of things you can do that don't have to cost catalog prices. So when you're looking to develop your farm and thinking about infrastructure, which I feel is really important in order to be good to the animals and to yourself, you need to have an infrastructure that allows them very few choices in terms of how to escape, what they can do. So there are materials out there. You don't have to buy the catalog stuff, and even if we had tons of money, and that's why we got into farming, right? It was for the money.
Absolutely. I can't wait to get into farming myself to make a pot full of money.
Yeah, and we haven't got the pot full yet, but I'm sure it's just around the corner. So we're looking forward to that. But interim, we need to really work close to the bone. So maybe,
I would like to point out the fact that you buy ALR land, especially in the Gulf Islands, does not mean that you have farmland. We discovered pretty quick that our ALR, agricultural land reserve land, is not very suited for farming. It has crappy soil, it's very wet, and we had to put a lot of time and money in infrastructure and soil development, drainage, and that before we even begin thinking of farming.
Well, I've heard that before, but this, it really is a beautiful spot, though. You've got the views, and it really is. And somebody comes along here and takes a look at things, they maybe don't understand how much work you've put into this, because I can see all the work. And every time you do something and you work on something else, then you've got to go back and see that what you worked on needs work again. And then plus you've got to run the farm your website, which is again notafactory.com, and that'll be a link on the newsletter. Very simple, but really easy to find out what you're selling. Anybody wants to go there, Cam and Vera sell a lot of product, and really easy to figure it out, and good pictures of your animals and your poultry. I love those turkeys.
Oh, well, the turkeys are really a direct result of Margaret Thompson's good works on the island, and she's a very persuasive person. Thank you, Margaret, for helping us out with the heritage animals and everything on the island, the abattoir, etc. Hey, if anybody here has some extra money, we could really use some for the abattoir. Let's send your money to the abattoir, to Margaret Thompson. She's doing good work there, and so the quality there, the custom finishing we've had on our chickens, fantastic. Thank you again. Good work, you guys. I should certainly like to shout out to you guys. Nicely done.
Okay, so I think that's enough for our intro. I think we'll maybe do a bit of walkabout, set up again with Scott, and start from there.
All right.
Thanks, Cam.
You're most welcome.
So we've moved a bit, and now we're next to a big hole, and the hole's got a bit of water in it.
It does.
And so you've been doing a little digging, I'd say.
We have, yeah. We came out here with a shovel, and mostly me, and I hand dug this pond. It's what it is we aim for 250,000 gallons, but because I had only a shovel, it's turned out to be, I think, probably about 220. So that's probably not true, right? You're looking at me. You don't believe me. We used a mini excavator, folks. Mini excavator, by the way, has really paid for itself on the farm here. It was a really scary and intimidating purchase initially, and we couldn't imagine ourselves coping with a piece of machinery like that. It has been a great investment, and if there's any way, folks, you can get a mini excavator, you too can dig a 250,000 gallon pond, and next year you'll have a ready supply of water, providing you do your homework. Dig a test pond first. We did do that.
Guys like to dig holes. I don't know, something we like to do.
Yeah, well, farming's all about digging a hole, I think, really. So
anyways, maybe you can talk a bit about how far down you went. Did you get water there? Is the pond filling up on its own? And what you're going to use the pond for? Because it's really a really important piece of farming is having a pond.
Yeah, without water you can't farm. And what we did was, when we first got here, or maybe in the second year we were here, we thought we need water. This is a key ingredient, just as you stated. We dug a series of test ponds on the property, and we looked at the geology and the kind of material that was coming out of the hole, and then we watched how they refilled and how they held water. And we got some advice from local excavator guys that had dug ponds, and they said, yeah, no, this is what you're looking for. And so in the end we selected this site here. It's the highest site on our property, so we're hoping at some point gravity will relieve some of the pumping we're going to have to do to get the water around the farm. So that's a real bonus, right? That we're at the highest point on my farm. I'm collecting water. So to answer your question about are we collecting water, we were collecting water on the last day of excavation. We hit a seam and water started coming in.
Amazing.
Gusher, right?
It's what you want.
Yeah, so we did this little dance. It was exactly like this. And it's been rising ever since. And it's exceeding the rate of the rainfall considerably. So we know that this giant basin that we're living on here is doing its work, and the water is coming in through the gravel that's at the bottom of the hole. Ideally, you want to find clay or blue clay, we're told, indicates movement of water, and that if you dig through the blue clay, you're going to find gravel, because that's what's allowing the water to flow. And that's exactly what happened here. And when we hit the gravel, water started seeping in. And that was before the rains. So we already had a puddle before, and this is the drought of the century, right? So we're quite confident this pond is going to hold water, and we are going to be able to use this pond recreationally as well. So hey, come have a swim in a few years, you know.
No, it's good, and I Scott's taking some pictures of the area here, but you're in the valley, sort of. You're at the end of Fulford Valley,
Yes.
but the land's sloping down towards you, so you're getting a lot of that really good runoff from the hills behind you, and it's settling sort of down here, and that's good.
This little bench land up here, right? So it's odd that there's been no history of farming here, really, because it would have had real value at one point in time. But we have found little in the way of records that a lot happened here. There's pockets of intensive activity all around us, but for some reason there's just very little history. So we don't know exactly what happened here. If anybody knows what happened here, I'd love to know what happened. But there's really not much in the way of evidence. As we've dug, we haven't found much of anything that says there were people here over the years doing any kind of farming at all.
When you first moved here, nothing was really fenced to speak of, just a bit. And I think I'd like to maybe talk about that a bit more, about how important fencing is to the property, maybe when we go down and take a look at some of your pasture land. And I think we'll probably do that now.
Okay. Let's do that. One thing I would like to point out is that this was the only pasture that had full fencing on it, and I think that they kept horses here. So we had to fence the entire property, and I'd like to point out to everybody that Articorp has a lot of grant money available to do this, and we applied and received funding to do our fencing through them, and it was a real leg up. And there's a lot of good strategies you can implement with them. Certainly that's partly how we financed our machine, because you're able to get in-kind funding. So if you're providing a machine, you can charge them an hourly rate. Machine money goes back that way. It's a great strategy. It's a good program.
Do a lot of young farmers know about Articorp? How do you spell that?
ARDI Corp. I run into very few people who are taking advantages of this program, right? And it's extensive. It takes hours to negotiate what's available each year, and it's good stuff. So look into it by all means. Articorp, really good. Environmental farm plan. They work under the aegis of that. So
I'll make sure there's a link on your interview on the newsletter for that.
It was a fantastic startup for us to have some of that capital. There's onerous because we had to fund it initially. They pay you after you're done. So don't go into the impression that you're going to get money in front. But if you can find a way to get some money to pay for it interim, they do eventually pay. And when you get the dough.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to be moving. So we're just walking down to the pasture, but on the way we saw this great gate that Cam's done, one of your first welding projects, I think, and it's fantastic. So we just had to stop and show Cam's many skillful endeavors.
Well, yeah. Thanks for noticing. I'm really proud of this gate. It is my first effort. Every farm's going to need to have a stick welder. I was advised immediately I should learn how to stick weld, so I did. And this is the first project. Very simple gate. You can see how it's constructed. It has a simple bolt that'll keep a fairly large animal out, and this panic bar right here. So if you're in a laneway and you need to make a hasty escape, you can lean onto this bar and leave the bolt undone if you're working with animals, and you have a very quick exit. This is a good example of what anybody can do, because this was my first project, folks. You can do it too.
Okay, thanks. So Cam, you've built your own feeder, and that's the Flintstone feeder. Got the little flags going on there. Cedar.
You could use it for a feeder, and that's the other thing, guys. You should be able to use your materials and or your infrastructure in a lot of different ways. That's something that I look to do all the time. So this could be used as a feeder, but what it is in fact is a cedar and also a lime spreader. And it's totally built from material you can get from the hardware store. The materials in this probably cost me about $150. I needed a drill, a skill saw, a crescent wrench, and a screw gun. And you two can build this. It's worked fabulously. Small, tight areas. I dragged it initially behind a lawn tractor. When we upgraded to a gator, another fantastic thing to have, I was able to negotiate all the nasty little pastures, so I'm able to lime and spread seed with this. One day I'm going to maybe build one out of metal, or maybe I'll find a used one, but this thing has been more than adequate. It gets used maybe twice a year.
We're never going to get down to that pasture. We're finding all these great things. And, you know, you could probably use it as a camper as you get older, like build something on it and maybe.
You have to stop.
So you've got some fall lambs here by the look of it.
We do. This is our very firstborn. He's a little ram lamb. These are hair sheep. We've purchased these. Their mom's on the islands is our first flock, and we're going to build with these. This guy here is going to get turned into meat probably, but I'm really fond of him. I struggle with this part of farming, folks, but
that's what I was going to ask you actually. Your philosophy is to make your animals happy, and then you end up eating half of them.
Yeah.
And for some farmers it's good, it's okay, and other farmers some have difficulty with that.
Yeah. Well, I've given a great deal of thought, and the conclusion I've come to is I'm psychotic. But I really like it because, not being psychotic necessarily, but eventually these guys are going to get big and they're going to be a nuisance, and kind of like teenagers, and you're happy to see them go, and then you get new ones. So that's psychotic, but it works for me.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. So we haven't made it down to the pasture yet. We're getting a little closer. Keep on bumping into. Thank you. Keep on bumping into interesting things. So this looks like a portable feeder.
It is. Another example of what you can do with about $100. This is 3 sheets of plywood, and I think about 80 lineal feet of 2x4. And what it's done is it's created a portable hay feeder and grain feeder. And what's nice about it is you can get inside of it, and if you're graining your girls and their needs are a little bit different, you're able to identify them as they stick their heads in and adjust the feed. It also, what I do is I use round holes for my sheep in terms of the feeder, so there's no competition at the feeder. What I found initially with the traditional little trough was that the dominant sheep got fat and the other one suffered. So this was our response to it. Really simple, plastic, tarp, plywood. You can buy this stuff, you can find it. It's not hard to make this. So,
and you've also you've got it on runners, so you can pull it on the tractor. That's usually what you do.
Yeah, so they can be moved around. Currently it's here because I have these lambs that need to be consolidated here at the barn for the winter. But in the spring, this is going to move out into the pastures, and it's going to make feeding time a fairly brief affair, which is kind of nice first thing in the morning when you've got a lot of things to do.
Good, perfect, makes sense. Okay, so let's head down there. Maybe get down there So we're just past the feeder we were looking at, and we're just taking a detour into structure. Maybe you could talk a tiny bit about the structure.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this structure. This is essentially a bank barn, working with existing infrastructure on the property. If you have any kind of a basic structure, it's not going to be that hard to degrade it, in fact, and you'll see what I mean by that when you look at the photos. Right now we're in the barn section.
You've got some storage for hay here.
We do, and this is a multiple use type thing. So we've actually brooded chickens in here. You can keep lambs in here in the springtime when we don't have a need for so much hay. And everything's downhill. So if that straw has to go to where it's used, it gets chucked out the balcony there. And, I'm planning to do this. I'm in it for the long haul. So when I'm 70, I can just dump that thing off the edge and go down and break it open and throw it down. Also, no ladders in the barn. I actually put a set of stairs in here because 70-year-old Cam might have to hobble down there with his walker.
Forward thinking, I like that.
We have to be forward thinking. If you're going to be farming, you got to be in it for the long haul.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're not out of the barn yet. Taking a look at some hogs here down below. How long have you had these hogs, Cam?
We purchased these hogs in June of this year, and they're going to be finished January 6th. They're probably going to be a little bigger than we'd like. They are Berkshire cross. They have some Yorkie in them, and some of the ones that are orange, I am informed, are most likely crossed with a Tamworth type hog. So these are heritage hogs. They're growing really well. They're natural, no meds. This is a Swedish deep bed method that you're looking at. So they're basically sleeping on a bed of compost that keeps them warm. As long as the biology's active and working in there, it's pretty much odorless, and it provides warmth for them should it get really cold out. We can adjust the temperature in there by adding water, which is a little counterintuitive, but we're really happy with this system, and we are going to continue with it.
They seem very happy. I don't see a big screen TV down there, but it doesn't look like they need one.
No, they're pretty much overstimulated as it is. If we were to walk down there, they'll go absolutely crazy looking for food and attention. And yes, they're happy, well-adjusted hogs, I think. And we're really actually proud of what we've done with their accommodations here, because looking at some of the horror shows we've seen documented in terms of how our pork is produced, was another major factor in the decision for us to do what we're doing with our farm. So I'm happy to look down on these guys and see that they're enjoying life and sleeping and drinking and have the freedom to move left and right.
Perfect. So I think one of the challenge to farmers on Salt Spring is a lot of hills. Sometimes land in the ALR is not necessarily good farmland. Sometimes the background of the farmer, such as yourself, coming from Alberta, where things are flat.
Correct.
We're sort of even on an angle going down to one of your pastures now. So that probably presented another problem for you.
It certainly did. This is not a Alberta postage stamp, your farm is in the center bullseye type operation. So we immediately thought, how are we going to move animals around here? Because of all the steep grades. We're at the angle of repos nearly on this slope, for example, right? So we knew that there'd be a lot of hard use on these steep slopes. And
it gets muddy here too when it rains a lot, so it gets hard to go up and down here with tractors and that.
So what we did is we made sure that we had several routes down to the lower areas, and we used existing, there were some logging roads, and so we didn't have to build all our roads. But again, the excavator was a huge help in being able to create roads where they needed to be made. And we spent probably about 3 months mapping our land, walking it, and in the end we had to build a map that was I think it was 12 feet by 8 feet high, so that we could reconcile all the gates. There's just a forest of gates and fences and posts and switch gates, and micromanaging that in little sheets of paper like this is the northwest quadrant was really difficult, right? So if you're going to come up with a master plan for your farm, don't be afraid to work on a big medium, man. Get a big huge piece of paper and lay it out in your living room floor.
Little tractors going around there, little animals.
Yeah, I had animals. We allowed ourselves a small margin to play, after we're done this serious work. Yeah, so that's my recommendation. So this is one of the laneways that is not used for animals. This is for people only, and it's the shortest distance to our furthest pasture. So if I were to take you through the southerly route, it would probably be about a 15 or 20 minute walk to make it all the way to pasture 8. But from Hogtown or from our main barn, this is about a 3-minute trip by gate, or maybe a 5-minute walk at the most. So let's go look at pasture 8.
Well, this is the famous pasture 8 we've heard all about, and we finally got here. So this is our last stop. So pasture 8, looks like we've got...
Yes, we have
some little animals here.
Yeah, we have some sheep down here. These are Corriedale sheep, and they are crossed with Dorpers, and allegedly 2 of them are pregnant. I purchased them from some very nice ladies in Nanaimo who had way too many animals. So we were happy to take them away. And they've been living down here basically off the land, so I'm not having to feed them an awful lot. Quality of their life is good, and they're getting a little bit of grain because I suspect they probably are pregnant. the other resident down here, who is my absolute favorite, and my wife's far enough away.
Vera, watching down there.
I can tell you that it's Tessie, and Tessie is my Highland Hereford cross, and she's the first cow we had, and she was the mother of our first steer, and she was bred by Garnet Lee, who lived just up the road. Unfortunately, we lost him this year. But I spend more time with Tessie than I do with Vera, and we've grown very close. So
how's Vera feel about that?
Make an appearance. Well, I don't know.
She seems to be wandering off right now.
Yeah, I know. There's definitely an element of jealousy, right? But
anyways, before we close, I'm just taking a look here. This is another portable shed that you've got here.
Yes.
That for feed, something similar to what we looked at before, and you can move this around.
Yeah, this is actually a chicken tractor, and it's overbuilt. And what I've done with this is in the summertime, I drag this around the upper flat pastures, and I use it to keep the chickens secure, particularly when they're small and more vulnerable. And in the fall, we've dragged it down here, and it's become alternative housing. So it's a good example of how we're, repurposing some of our infrastructure and able to use it, like in this case, to store feed in the back and to accommodate the sheep in the front to keep them dry and warm. And I enjoy coming down here, and I like to see that the sheep are using this well, and they're dry and warm. So it keeps them on the pasture. Otherwise, because of the shape of this property, the issue that we talk about, which happens in the Gulf Islands here a lot, 300 feet is as far as your animals are probably going to go, right? So there's this magical line where they'll stop grazing. There can be green grass there. I was confounded by it. I thought, look, you guys, let's go. I'd walk them down here. Finally, I realized I have to give them accommodation here. So that's how this housing got here and why we're using it here.
Well, that's great. We're just about finished, but I guess I'd like to say your enthusiasm is just great, and it's a lot of hard work working on a farm. And I guess I always try and end each interview, not that I've done many. Scott's laughing. But so what advice can you give to a young farmer coming to Salt Spring? Maybe in a couple of sentences, because we could talk about this for a lot of time, but...
Yeah, well, I think that if you're going to come to Salt Spring as a young person with the expectation of doing farming, you're most likely going to be doing woofing, or you're going to be a sort of tenant farmer. So look to make relationships with local farmers, email them, write them, check out their websites, go talk to them, and try to imagine, how you could fit into an operation. We all need help here, right? So, you'd be most welcome. So my advice would be to go out, talk to the farmers, look at what they're doing, and imagine how you can fit into that operation.
Okay, well, once again, thanks for taking some...
Right, and I would like to let you know our web address is www.notafactory.com. And you're most welcome to come visit the farm. That's one other thing I'd like to really emphasize, is that in terms of transparency, we really encourage people to come look at the farm, and you're going to see us warts and all. So please do come if you're on Salt Spring Island. Otherwise, check out our site. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks, Cam, and thanks for taking the time today to talk about your farm.
Well, it was a great pleasure having you guys here. Thanks for coming.
I can see why Cam wants to spend time with...
Isn't she gorgeous?
Yeah.
She's starting to gallop.
Hello, sweetie. Come here.
She gallops.
Come see the
I wanted to ask you about your hay and straw. Your hay, where do you get your hay from? Do you get it offline?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
got it this time for the first
Pretty
So
hard
what
to
kind
find good hay
of
here in
cow
the
is she?
really, oh yeah,
She's a Highland Hereford cross, and
crappy hay.
She's
It's
pulled.
very expensive.
so she has
Is that
no
what's
horns.
in there, alfalfa?
But she looks strongly
no,
like
but
a...
it's first cut and it's
a Highland.
very
High in protein.
rich looking.
Yeah.
She's just a gorgeous girl, and she's 9 years old, and she's had a rest this year, and we're going to try to do AI with her this December. So if you guys do some follow-up with us, I hope to be able to show you a calf, maybe, by summer. She's a good mom.
We can do
She's
that.
a fantastic mom. And a good friend. She's my good friend.
She's beautiful.
So she's been living down here. Like Vera just thought she left the farm, right? And she makes a fabulous living down here. Like she doesn't even really, she's not that interested in her feed or anything. She just wants to hang out and get human attention when I'm down here. What a fantastic browser. She's really, I can see the changes in my pastures already. And that's a whole nother topic, right? Which is doing mob grazing and the benefits of rapid rotation, strong rotation. We can see the changes already, and we've been at this a very short period of time, so I can only imagine with ongoing work, how the